I once watched my own son slide a folder across my kitchen table and tell me he'd already signed for power of attorney for my life. That moment didn't break me, but it cracked something deep enough that I still hear the sound of it. If you've lived through anything like that, tell me your story below. I remember the weight of that afternoon more than the noise around me. Portland's airport stays busy, but the moment Evan shut the car door and told me, "I've got things to handle, Dad. Just figure it out," the rideshare pulled away before I could respond. No cash except the $43 folded in my pocket. No bank card because he'd held onto it for an investment opportunity. No plan for getting home. My hand drifted toward the spot where my pills usually stayed. The small container wasn't there. Tried to steady my breath, pretending the tightness across my chest was nothing unusual. A part of me wanted to call after Evan, ask what he was thinking, but the words never left my mouth. Silence felt safer than begging my own son to turn around. So I stayed put near the curb, watching strangers reunite, watching drivers wave signs, watching everything move forward while I stood still. A short tremor passed through my leg, leaned against a railing to hide it. The thought of collapsing in public crossed my mind, then faded when a cane tapped twice near my feet. A voice followed low and steady. "Sir, you sound like you're having a rough moment. Need a hand?" Turned to see a tall man with a folded mobility cane sunglasses. He introduced himself as Adrian Hale. The name rang a bell. Later, I'd remember articles about a tech entrepreneur who'd lost most of his sight, but kept building companies anyway. He tilted his head as if reading the air. "You're trying not to panic. Am I close?" The accuracy landed harder than I expected. A soft grunt escaped me halfway between agreement and embarrassment. His cane tapped lightly beside us while he waited, leaving space for an answer. Adrian didn't press. He simply offered choices. "I can call a car, or someone you trust, or walk you somewhere calmer if you're not sure what you need." My jaw locked. Saying the truth out loud meant admitting Evan had stranded me like I was an afterthought. Shame sat heavy in my chest. A shrug slipped out instead. Adrian heard the strain in my breath and shifted his stance, catching more than I'd spoken. "All right," he said softly. "Let's get you moving. One step at a time." My legs finally cooperated. I followed him toward the walkway, pretending I wasn't fighting to keep my balance, pretending the pressure beneath my ribs wasn't tightening. A cold breeze hit, snapping against my jacket. I straightened and matched his pace, even as something hollow settled deeper. Near the exit doors, he paused long enough for me to steady myself. Thoughts fired in fragments, Evan driving off the missing card, the empty balance, the throb gathering behind my sternum. Everything felt suspended, like the wrong word might make something in me give way. Adrian angled his cane toward the curb. "This way." The car dropped us off at a small diner on Eni, Alberta, the kind of place where laminated menus never change and tables sit close enough to catch pieces of strangers' conversations. Adrian asked if I wanted to sit. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The chair held firm beneath me, so I tried to match its stability. He set his cane beside him and waited with the patience of someone who knows when silence helps more than advice. My phone vibrated against the table. All from the bank. A large transfer, an unusual withdrawal, a recommendation to contact the fraud line immediately. The screen glowed with the warnings, each one hitting harder than the last. My stomach clenched, tapped the screen and skimmed the numbers. Savings gone. All of it. Evan hadn't just borrowed. He'd drained the account that had taken decades to build money meant to carry me through the years when I might not be able to work anymore. Adrian tilted his head when he heard my breath catch. Trouble. The single word almost cracked something open, but pride got there first. Just a misunderstanding. I muttered. He didn't push. That restraint kept me from unraveling right there at the table. A war started inside me. Part of me whispered to leave it alone, let Evan sort himself out. Another part, tired, bruised, older than my years, knew what he'd done, crossed a line no parent expects to face. Discipline and forgiveness get twisted when it's your child hurting you. You tell yourself to hold the family together even when the weight of that effort grinds you down. A new buzz came through. This time from people I'd known for years. Old neighbors, a cousin, even someone from church. "Hey, Caleb heard you gave Evan financial control. Good for you. Kids should help out. You really ought to let him handle your money at your age. Don't stress him out. He's trying his best." My jaw tightened at every message. Evan had been busy. Social media made it easy for him to paint whatever story he wanted, and folks believed what they read. No one asked for my side. They assumed I'd made some confused decision, then turned around to blame the boy when it backfired. Adrian didn't comment on the texts directly. Instead, he said, "People jump to conclusions when they see only half the picture. Doesn't mean the picture's true." The words landed harder than he intended, and he stopped there, sensing I needed room to think. The ache in my chest persisted long after we left the diner. He booked a ride for me without asking, and I didn't protest. The car took me to a clinic in Selwood because the flutter in my heartbeat had grown irregular, and ignoring it felt reckless. The nurse at the front asked a few routine questions, then directed me to wait for the attending. Marla Jennings stepped into the room not long after. She carried authority without making people feel small, something rare in medical staff these days. She checked the monitor, then turned her attention to me with a level look. "How long has your heart been acting up?" A shrug surfaced before words did. "It comes and goes." She crossed her arms. "You look like a man carrying more than one problem." The attempt at a smile didn't fully form on my face. "Just a busy day." Her brow lifted slightly. "Busy is one thing. Stress is another. You have anyone in your corner?" That question hit a place I tried to avoid touching. The truth hovered between us. No support, no partner, no siblings close by. Friends, yes, but the kind who checked in once a year. And Evan? Well, the state of things said enough. A slow shake of the head answered her. She didn't offer pity, which helped. "All right, then be careful. Bodies keep score when our minds try to ignore the load." The exam wrapped up, and she gave me a card for follow-up tests. Not a suggestion, more like a gentle warning. Stepping outside late afternoon had settled in. My phone buzzed again. One message from the bank, then 5 from Evan. "Dad, you're overreacting. You told me to help with finances. Stop making this harder. Call me back. We need to talk before this gets out of hand." Didn't open the rest. The tension from earlier started rising again, climbing up my spine, threatening to take over. My thumb hovered above the screen, then slipped into my pocket instead. Not another text this time. A direct call. The screen showed the bank's main line, so I answered, hoping it was a mistake about the withdrawals. A woman introduced herself from the authorization department and asked if I could confirm the full financial guardianship form submitted earlier that morning. My steps stalled. "I'm sorry." "The what?" She repeated it word for word, her tone polite routine. Unaware she'd just knocked the wind out of me, Evan had filed documents claiming I'd granted him total control over my accounts. Not partial, not temporary. Total. A short pause held the line while I tried to swallow the tightness climbing up my throat. "Ma'am." I didn't sign anything came out quieter than intended. She hesitated, then promised to flag the file for review, but the uncertainty in her voice told me the damage might already have started spreading. The call ended, leaving a cold hum in my ears. My hand shook enough that I switched the phone to my other palm. A man passing by glanced at me and kept walking. The street carried on like nothing unusual had happened. A voice broke through behind me. "Caleb, is that you turned to find Nancy, an old friend of my late wife?" She'd aged a bit around the eyes, but still had the same warm expression she always carried. She asked how I'd been, then lowered her voice. "I ran into Evan a while back. He mentioned you'd let him manage everything for you. Said you were relieved to have the pressure off." Her words punched harder than the call from the bank. Evan had been planting this story months before today. Nancy kept talking, unaware of the impact. "He said you two had an understanding. I thought it was good he stepped up." A nod served as a polite acknowledgement, though inside something twisted sharply. Hearing her repeat Evan's version made me wonder if I'd missed signs earlier. Doubt crept in, unwanted but persistent. Had I been too harsh on him? Maybe he genuinely believed he was helping? Maybe my silence had made him assume he needed to take charge. Nancy excused herself a few minutes later, leaving me standing alone again. The walk to the bus stop felt longer than it should have. Thoughts churned without forming anything clear. Once home came to mind, I tried opening my secondary email locked. The recovery page insisted the password had been changed. Tried logging into an old utility account, also blocked. A message from the service provider claimed a family member requested access updates. My jaw clenched as the pattern became obvious. Another buzz, a voicemail from the bank telling me, "Your son expressed concerns about forgetfulness and erratic decisions." Hearing those words aloud nearly sent me stumbling. Evan had built a narrative so thoroughly that institutions believed him more than they believed me. The fear inside shifted into something sharper. Not anger yet, but awareness. He wasn't acting out of confusion or panic. He was consolidating power over my life, one system at a time. The bus line on the corner became my next destination. I boarded it and rode to the downtown branch of my bank. The lobby had only a few customers, so a teller called me forward quickly. My explanation stayed calm. Asked for printed statements from the last 6 months. Asked for copies of any forms Evan had submitted. He hesitated but complied when I showed my ID and insisted I needed the records for a personal audit. While he fetched the files, my phone buzzed again, Evan texting. "Dad, stop making this dramatic. Pick up when I call." Every message dripped with certainty, as if he'd already decided I had no authority left. The teller returned with a stack of papers. A tight thank you escaped me. Took photos of each page right there, moving quickly in case someone tried to interfere. The forms Evan had filed included a forged signature messy enough that anyone familiar with my handwriting would spot the difference, but convincing enough for automated systems. Leaving the bank, a heaviness settled in my chest again. The wind, not cold, just brisk, pushed me toward the bus stop, so I kept going, the folder clutched under my arm. The ride toward Gresham rolled on without much conversation among passengers. My fingers tightened around the folder until the edge dug into my palm. The pain grounded me, kept my thoughts from spiraling. For now, the only thing that mattered was holding on to the documents resting against my chest, each page marking the first proof that the reality I'd tried to excuse was no longer possible to deny. A delivery truck idled near my driveway when the bus let me off. The driver stepped out, holding a thick envelope sealed with a strip of bright tape. "You, Caleb Hartman." A nod was all he needed. "Got a legal packet for you. Signature required." The clipboard felt heavier than it had any right to. I signed, took the envelope, and watched the courier drive off without a glance back. The street looked unchanged, but a tension worked its way through my shoulders, an instinctive warning before the facts even landed. At the table, the envelope tore open. A stack of court-stamped documents spilled out. The first page stopped my breath-cold petition for temporary financial guardianship. Filed by Evan. My son had gone to the county and declared me unfit to manage my own affairs. I sat turning each page, slowly refusing to skim. Claims of cognitive inconsistency. Assertions that I'd been struggling to maintain basic responsibilities. Fabrications written with the confidence of someone sure no one would challenge them. Halfway through a signature block, my phone rang. "Adrian." "You make it home?" he asked. "I need a lawyer," I said. He didn't ask why. "I'll send you her number. Call her today." The line clicked off. A notification landed immediately. My primary checking account had been frozen pending guardianship dispute. Another notice from the insurance provider said they needed to verify decision-making capacity before renewing my coverage. Then the utility company announced a failed payment. In a matter of hours, Evan had dismantled every structure I relied on. The humiliation cut deeper than the threat. This wasn't about money anymore. He was trying to erase my autonomy. The instinct to shout or call him died before it formed. That kind of reaction only gave his petition teeth. I needed actions, not outrage. I grabbed my keys and headed for the car. The envelope slid across the passenger seat as I pulled out of the driveway. Annie Gleason passed in a blur. Traffic pushed me forward. No radio, no wandering thoughts. Only resolve hardening with every mile. Get counsel. Stop him. Reclaim what he tried to take. A red light caught me near a gas station. My phone buzzed with 2 corporate messages, then one from Evan Dad. "Cooperate. You're making this harder. This is for your safety. Stop resisting and let me fix things." Every word dripped with the tone of a man talking down to someone he expected to obey. The light shifted. I drove on. Downtown buildings rose ahead as I followed the route to the attorney Adrian recommended. Parking took effort, but eventually a space opened along the curb. I killed the engine and stared at the folder beside me. A younger version of myself might have cursed. This version understood that precision beats noise. I stepped out, locked the car, and headed toward the brick building. No hesitation. No pause to reconsider. Evan had crossed a line that left no room for doubt. At the law office door, the folder shifted under my arm. The weight of it didn't weaken me. It steadied me. The receptionist looked up the moment I stepped inside, as if she'd been expecting me. Before I could speak, she reached for a large envelope resting on the counter. "This came for you earlier. No return address." A faint crease formed between the receptionist's brows, as if she'd wondered about the envelope herself. I took it from her and followed her gesture towards the waiting area. No small talk, no questions. Just process. The flap tore open in a single pull. 6 bank statements dropped into my hands, older than any I'd seen. Withdrawals at 2 a.m. Transfers labeled family support. Purchases I'd never made. The earliest dated 9 months back. Someone had mailed this straight to the attorney's office. No note, no explanation, only numbers that drew a straight line through months of deception. Heat spread across my chest. Evan hadn't made one desperate mistake. He'd been draining my account piece by piece, confident enough that he assumed I'd never look. A memory rose, unwanted, but sharp. The hospital corridor the night my wife died. Evan, 20 and furious, had stabbed the air with a sentence I never forgot. "You don't know how to take care of anything. Not even her." I'd spent years compensating for that wound. Every loan, every concession, every silence traced back to that moment. The office door opened. Mr. Hartman Marcy Doyle stood there, mid-40s, brisk, unblinking. A woman who didn't need intimidation to get honesty. I followed her in and laid out the past 48 hours. No embellishment, no softening. When I reached the guardianship petition, she lifted her hand. "Let me stop you," she said. "This isn't conflict. It qualifies as elder financial abuse in Oregon. You have every right to challenge it immediately." Hearing that aloud hit harder than anger. It reframed the entire situation with the kind of clarity emotion couldn't blur. My phone buzzed. A message from Marla. "Your tests look stable. Watch your stress. Don't carry more than your body can handle." Her timing cut straight through the fog gathering at the edge of my vision. Marcy studied me. "You look torn. Do you want to act now or hope he backs down?" Torn wasn't the word. A father's instinct still twitched, but it no longer overruled the facts. More notifications lit up the screen. "Dad's been unstable for months, just doing what's best for him. If he lashes out, don't engage. Sent to others, maybe posted publicly. Lines designed to isolate me. He wasn't just manipulating money. He was rewriting my identity in real time. The edges of my world had shifted. People believe repetition more than truth. My silence had become his proof." Marcy folded her hands. "We need your answer today. If we respond now, we freeze his petition and open an investigation. If we delay, he gains ground." The choice hit with a slow, heavy precision. This wasn't about punishing my son. It was about refusing to hand him the last pieces of my life. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled as the tip touched the page, not from fear, but because this signature carried 20 years of history. The ink moved. My name formed clean and final. Marcy reviewed it, then slid the next form toward me. Each signature pushed another boundary back into place territory Evan had tried to claim. On the last page, my hand shook again, but my gaze didn't waver. When she gathered the documents, the shuffle of paper felt like a line settling permanently. The drive back to Gresham carried a stillness that felt earned, not comforting. Once home, I set the legal folder on the dining table and began sorting through everything I'd kept over the past year. Old statements, medical bills, service contracts, insurance letters, notes I'd scribbled during late-night calls. Each pile grew as patterns emerged, transfers Evan must have assumed I'd never catch. Hours passed, though I couldn't say how many. The work steadied me. By the time I reached the last drawer, the tremor that had followed me for days had faded. The fear remained, but something stronger settled in its place. A few emails were gone, messages I had saved. Notifications showed attempts from a device I didn't recognize. Apps were rearranged, logged out, or tampered with. Someone had been inside my accounts. Someone who believed I wouldn't fight back. The realization sharpened my focus more than it frightened me. Once the paperwork filled a grocery bag, I drove to Pearl District to meet Adrian. His studio was a converted warehouse, open work tables, soldering tools, circuits arranged with obsessive order. He turned toward my steps. "You made it?" he said. He sensed the tension I carried, but didn't comment. He guided me to a bench at the back. We spoke for a while, nothing formal. When I mentioned the guardianship petition, he grimaced. "Lost my sight at 34, he said. "Thought my family would circle the wagons. They circled my bank accounts instead." His thumb traced the edge of a device he was working on. People panic when they feel control slipping. Some claw it back by taking it from whoever seems easiest. No venom, just lived truth. The kind that strips excuses clean. Evan hadn't been protecting anyone. He'd been positioning himself. Driving home, I noticed a sedan idling across from my driveway. A man sat inside, posture fixed. The car didn't move until I stepped closer to the porch. Then it drifted away, steady and unhurried, like someone marking territory, not hiding. My phone buzzed. "Don't escalate this. It'll only make things worse." A new email followed a financial service claiming my account was under investigation. Impossible. Marcy hadn't filed anything yet. Evan knew, maybe not everything but enough to push back. A tightening formed at the base of my throat. Not panic. Strategy. The house suddenly felt too exposed for what I held: legal documents, statements, recordings, screenshots. Evan had walked through these rooms too many times. He knew every entry point. I gathered the essentials into a single binder and drove to the clinic in Selwood. Marla was finishing with another patient when I walked in. She noticed the binder but didn't pry. "Can you keep this someplace safe for a day or two?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "I'll lock it up." No questions, no commentary. Her steadiness cut through the pressure crowding my ribs. She placed the binder in a cabinet, closed it, and gave a nod that landed like a small vow. The evening stretched across the streets as I walked back to the car. Traffic moved in clean lines, headlights slicing through the dusk. The steadiness helped proof the world didn't rise or fall on one family's damage. In the driver's seat, I opened the navigation app and typed the county courthouse address. Not for tonight. Marcy would file in the morning. But setting the route felt necessary, a physical marker of the decision already locked into place. The drive toward Gresham blurred into a sequence of turns and streetlights. The closer I got home, the sharper everything felt. Tomorrow wouldn't crush me. It would define the boundary Evan had kept pushing past. I pulled into the driveway, shut off the engine, and stared at the glowing map. The courthouse route sat bright, unwavering. My hand stayed on the wheel for a moment, then I stepped out, closed the door with a firm click, and walked toward the house, already knowing what the morning required. At 8, the courthouse opened. I arrived early, folder under my arm. The lobby filled in slow increments, lawyers muttering into headsets, clerks pushing carts brimming with files. I waited at the counter until a clerk approached with a bundle of papers. "Mr. Hartman, your son filed a separate petition this morning. You'll need to review this." One look at the heading hit like a strike to the ribs. Evan had petitioned to remove my legal right to manage my own life, citing diminished capacity and episodes of confusion. His motion sat in the same pipeline as mine. Father and son filing against each other in the same system, not by accident, by design. A pulse hammered in my neck. I gripped the pen to sign the acknowledgement slip, pressing hard enough for the edge to bite into my fingers. Not collapse, not fear, just a body hitting its limit under pressure. My phone buzzed 3 times. The bank demanded immediate verification of suspicious activity. The insurance company suspended my medical coverage pending capacity review. A former coworker forwarded a message describing me as erratic and unreliable, sent anonymously. Legal attack, financial disruption, damage to reputation. Even my health coverage pulled into the fight. The hits came so fast the air tightened, but I forced a single slow breath and held it until the ground steadied again. A security guard motioned me toward a bench outside the hearing room. Pain sparked beneath my ribs and eased as I leaned forward with both hands together. Not panic, strain. A body pushed to the brink, but still upright. Evan arrived minutes later with an attorney. When he finally met my eyes, the expression was hard and fixed. No apology, no uncertainty, only intent. The deputy called our names. We followed him into a small conference room where a clerk waited at a narrow table. No judge yet. Temporary guardianship cases always started this way. The clerk nodded to Evan's lawyer. "You may begin." The attorney opened his folder, cleared his throat, and launched straight into the narrative Evan had built. Mr. Hartman exhibits declining cognitive reliability. He has demonstrated difficulty managing his finances and requires immediate oversight to prevent further self-harm through mismanagement. Each word landed with the precision of a blade, sharpened beforehand, rehearsed, prepared, positioned to cut. The man stood straightening his jacket. We believe Mr. Hartman is experiencing memory lapses and unstable behavior. His son has witnessed multiple incidents and is concerned for his father's safety and well-being." Evan nodded solemnly, stepping into the role of the dutiful child. "Dad gets mixed up," he added. "Sometimes he forgets appointments or repeats things. He gets overwhelmed easily. The irritation that rose inside me didn't show on my face. Years of staying calm through emergencies had carved in me a discipline that held strong now." My palms stayed flat against the folder, shoulders relaxed, voice steady. "I'd like to present documentation," I told the clerk. Laid out the bank statements showing transfers Evan had hidden for months. Then the forged signature he'd submitted. Then printouts of his messages implying I was confused and needed oversight, each page placed with deliberate care. The anonymous envelope came last, the one proving this pattern didn't start recently. The clerk picked up the forged form and squinted at the signature. "This is supposed to be yours." "It isn't," I answered. Evan's composure cracked. "He's confused," he blurted. "He doesn't remember signing things." This is part of his attorney touched his arm, trying to rein him in, but the damage had begun. A tremor showed in his voice, and his leg bounced rapidly under the table. He kept glancing at the documents like they were traps he hadn't expected. The clerk turned to Evan. "Did you notify your father before filing this?" Evan opened his mouth, closed it, then stammered something about acting quickly for safety. His argument unraveled as he realized he couldn't explain the forged paperwork or the money transfers. That's when I slid forward the final page, the key piece from the anonymous envelope, a timeline detailing every withdrawal Evan had made, matched against his own social media posts, bragging about new investments and funding boosts. He looked at it and buckled. His breath hitched. His eyes flickered toward the door as if calculating an escape route. His attorney now rubbed a hand over his forehead, clearly realizing the case had flipped. The clerk exhaled through his nose. "Based on what I've seen, the existing guardianship petition is suspended. Mr. Hartman retains decision-making authority until further review." Evan slumped back. No apology. Just a stunned silence that settled across his shoulders. Marcy placed a hand near my elbow to signal we were finished. No triumph washed over me, only a heavy sort of clarity. We walked toward the exit, the hallway stretching long and quiet. Just before the elevator doors opened, Marcy said softly, "We won this round. Your rights are intact." Marcy had the final stack of documents ready when I stepped into her office. No preamble, just a finger tapping the signature lines. Termination of Evan's access. Revocation of every authorization I'd ever granted him. A formal request for a county investigation. Years of hesitation compressed into a half-inch of paper. The pen moved cleanly across the first form. Then the next. No shaking. No wavering. Each signature felt like clearing a weight I'd carried out of habit rather than love. A father learns to absorb impact until the cost becomes unbearable. Marcy gathered everything into a folder. "He's locked out now," she said. "Every account, every document, every system. The county will take it from here. Locked out." The words didn't break anything open. They simply closed what he'd pried apart. Outside her office, my phone buzzed. A message from the clinic. "Your levels look stable. Stress markers down. Keep going, don't carry what isn't yours." A second buzz, Adrian just checking in. "Hope the meeting went all right." Short, steady, enough. Later that day, Marcy called. Evan's petition triggered an automatic review. Investigators found inconsistencies. His access to certain programs froze. His startup partners backed away. The image he'd built cracked fast. My phone filled with messages from relatives, shock, confusion, long-lost concern. Not apologies, just people scrambling to distance themselves now that the truth was documented instead of whispered. The old fear, the one rooted in widowhood and trying to cling to the last living branch of family, rose for a moment. It didn't take over this time. Choosing myself didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like finally breathing. Within a week, boxes were packed. Furniture arranged into piles keep donate leave behind. A studio in Selwood opened up, modest, clean, no ghosts in the walls. I could exhale in it without waiting for the next blow. The first night I slept through. Work followed easily. A non-profit needed part-time help installing water filtration systems in rural communities. No corporate politics, no pressure. Just wrenches, pipes, problem-solving, and a team that didn't pry into your life to measure your worth. I picked my hours, I kept my boundaries. The work felt honest. Days formed a calmer rhythm. Mornings tightening bolts and checking gauges. Evenings walking the blocks around the apartment. No alarms, no demands. A life rebuilt in small, steady motions. One afternoon after a long shift, I set my keys on the counter. The phone lit up with a stream of messages from Evan paragraphs tumbling over each other. Apologies, explanations, accusations dressed as regret, claims he'd been scared, attempts to cast himself as misunderstood, a final line insisting we needed to save the family. None of it reached me. Not out of bitterness, out of understanding. Some apologies aimed to reopen the door, not repair what was broken. I let the screen dim and placed the phone in the drawer by the sink. Didn't block him, didn't answer. Just removed the access he no longer deserved. The drawer closed with a soft click. Not symbolic, not triumphant, just a boundary finally held. Around me the room stayed steady, my jacket on the chair, a mug of tea cooling on the counter. Simple things. Mine. A long, even breath left my chest. Then I turned on the faucet and rinsed the mug, moving through the space as if claiming it for the first time.